Sword of Power, Extension of the Mind. Welcome back again, Chromatic Warriors. This time, we're putting a new spin on an old classic. One of my earlier videos with Uncle Adam, the Tabletop Minions, was on painting a power sword. It was a nice way to lay out and demonstrate a variety of techniques. So this time around, I'm making another video on another sword with that video in mind. So we're having a second look and a spin on a classic. This will be a bit of a hybrid of true metallic metal and opaque paints, inks. Watch and enjoy. In the beginning, Sword of Power. Watch the video Lazarus Phase 1 to see how I got to this point. Let's take this power sword to the top. On my palette, I have various mixtures of Meridius Blue from P3. This is Arcane Blue. Both of these puddles. A little bit of white added to that Arcane Blue. Some pure white. Who knows what kinds of mixtures we'll need to create. And here I have some turquoise ink and some white ink, which will come into play later. First thing, take a portion of Meridius Blue, dilute it down, and I'll just start sweeping it towards the hilt, taking advantage of this wash-like consistency, letting it soak into the crevices, brightly lining around these power cells. Have a small amount going right down the middle of the sword. It looks bright and beautiful, but as it dries, it's going to desaturate, so we will go back and reapply that same consistency, that same color. We'll do that 3 times at minimum. Sometimes you want more, but just to ensure that I have a healthy level of saturation, that is what I'll be after. I'm also going to be bringing a slight amount of this Meridius Blue, still working with the transparency, but I'll have this sitting on top of this black shadow, allowing the black shadow to shine through, affect the Meridius Blue. Just a small hint of power is what we're after. I want the root of the blade to appear that it's containing this power. When he swings the sword, it hits an orc. The power lashes out and electrocutes his blood. So just the slightest hint. We'll keep working at this in thin layers. Let me apply the studio magic and dry this. Fast forward ahead in time, here it is, dry enough to at least be painted on top of. You can see that thin layer over the black shadow, how that has dulled down nicely. That is what we're after. So we'll just thin down our Meridius Blue and repeat the process one more time. And there we see it, with a second coat of paint. Exciting, but I want to show you every step in the process. So guess what comes next? That's right, 10 points for you. Once again, we are going to apply another layer of Meridius Blue, sweeping it into the crevices, pushing it towards the hilt, and just a ghost of a kiss right on the blade. Excellent. 3 healthy coats. Give me a touch of that Arcane Blue, baby. I'm going to be diluting this down to the same consistency, making sure to not completely cover the previous layer. Still do want to pull this up around these little power nodes into the crevices and some of the more further reaching areas. But you get the picture. We have a fade going from Meridius Blue down to Arcane Blue. I'll also bring just the smallest amount of Arcane Blue, the midpoint, right along here in the shadow. Just start with kind of a scratchy cloud. Lick that brush, smooth it out a bit. It doesn't have to be perfect, we're just setting up the backdrop for a future effect. Might as well switch down to a smaller brush. we can go ahead and just apply one more thin targeted layer of arcane blue. Make sure that's lining out these little power supplies. Drag it through the middle of the sword ever so slightly. We'll just touch that midpoint in the shadow one more time. Now things start to get a little fun. Move up the chain in brightness, and what I want to do is add just a subtle hint of crackling power. So I'll line this into the crevices one more time. And also around these power nodes, just add a brighter hint of that highlight. And let's add just a small amount of crackling energy. I want to press very lightly and just kind of leave just the smallest hint of some lightning power crackling across the blade. It's going to be a lot more obvious and just a little more dense, numerous, the closer I get to the hilt where the batteries are. Let's also pack a little power into this slight gathering of the storm upon the mid-blade. Just press very lightly and try to kind of break up your lines, make it jagged if you can. Kind of lifting and dropping, creating different points of density and saturation. Less is more. Just think of it that way. Not too shabby. At this stage, I'd like to introduce some ink just to produce a little bit more vibrance, a bit more of a smooth blend. So, don't know why I'm taking a weird foppish accent when I say the word blend. Let's drop that. Watch the brush, don't listen to the voice. We'll dilute some of that turquoise ink. I'll take even more of it off on my thumb, which is gigantic on your vid screen. Now just the slightest ghostly tint. I won't even need to go back to reload my brush. If anything, any going back, it will be to remove some of this ink. But you can see the effect. It's harmonizing with the turquoise paint very nicely. Just adding that extra punch. Inks pack a lot of pigment. Things can become too glossy if you paint with too much ink. But for power sword effects, OSL, I always find time to add a little bit of ink into the equation. With the layer of ink fully dry, let's go in, I'll take a bit of white and make a near white mixture, just slightly off white into the turquoise direction. Dilute that down because any of the dark lines created from the ink, I'm going to paint over those erase them with this brighter mixture because I want glowing crevices, kind of going a little bit back and forth, but the ink is a necessary step, for me at least. And I like to see what I enjoy. Let's use this to line along the edge of the sword as well. I'm thinking I'll pull some silver in for the final act, but for now it just kind of makes, but for now it just looks more harmonious with this bright highlight. Maybe I'll be happy after this, maybe. And why not just drop a small edge highlight along the inner line here. And we can apply a similar line of thought right in here. You see how I'm concentrating the area of highlight where the lightning effect is. And as I move away, I can get real fancy. Probably approach this from a different angle. But as I move away, dropping down in tone a little bit, going back to more of that pure Meridius blue. Decent. And back on top of these lightning areas, they've been toned down slightly from the ink. I'll pull them back up, but this time paying a little more attention to the intersections and making sure that those little crackles are the brightest in my series of crackles. Kind of where the electricity converges and creates an intersection, I want a brighter point at that convergence. And of course, just keep packing it towards the battery, hilt. Let's also take that Meridius blue and, whoa, fake out, I have a little black off camera. Mix down a very deep version of that. And on top of the little veins leading up to the power nodes, want those to be a little darker. Again, just because I want the deeper crevices to look the brightest, creates a slight internal glow. So if we just pick out these little power points with our power paint. Now let's have some fun. Let's snap into a little bit of excitement. I'm going to take some ink. I'm going to combine it with Meridius blue. Create kind of a more vibrant but deeper blue. And on the notion of just kind of carrying this subtlety across an iron blade down the main vein here, I'm just going to run a small amount of that mixture. Keep moving around, just kind of working our highlights up. Turns out I am happy having this brighter opaque white as a highlight on top of the metallic color. Mentally, I didn't picture this looking good, but as the silver is dark, so is the blade. The power is bright. I think it works well enough. And just taking a final round to maybe extend some of these powered effects. Again, dropping a slight drop in tone. Carrying this into more of the pure arcane blue area. Righteous. That is the most powerful blade. One final step. Oh yeah. White ink, turquoise ink, more white ink. Speaking on the vibrancy of inks and the vibrancy of pure electric power, let's kick things up a notch. So I'll take just a small amount of water and create a dilute amount of this inky mixture off to the side. And then, as my final touch. I'll just glaze this into the crevices of power. All right, job's a good one. Let's take a look. And there we have it, ready to lash out with a lick of that lightning, sizzle the blood until your eyes pop out. Man, I love Warhammer. Please feel free to log any questions, comments, concerns, sword safety tips in the section below. Thank you for your support, and I'll see you next time.